Welcome back to the channel. It's been far too long since I've done one of these videos. If you guys are excited for them to be back, let me know down below. We are obviously going to cover part 6 today of Gardens of the Moon reread. Kind of shaking off the rust here. Like I said, it's been a minute since I've done one of these. Thankfully, I'm kind of eased back in. This part was only about 50 pages long, so it should be a bit of a shorter video. You never know, though. I could always get off on a tangent and it could be a 30-minute video. So we'll see where it goes. But even though this part is on the shorter end, definitely, a lot of character development happens. So you obviously, with any Malazan reading, you're always trying to pay as close attention as you can to, because all these small details add up. They build into these great, detailed, nuanced characters, and we get a lot of important insight in this part into a few different characters. So anyways, let's just jump right into the recap. So it starts off, we have Ralik Nam, who, just to go over, so his main storyline, he's kind of on this mission to redeem and restore Cole's reputation. Obviously, way back at the beginning of the book, that's kind of what started everything, is when Opan kind of got involved, where he was going to assassinate Lady Simtal at the last second for an inexplicable reason. He's like, oh, maybe it'll be a good idea to assassinate the councilman who she's sleeping with, to kind of stir up this controversy. So anyways, we start off with him. He actually has a meeting with Circlebreaker, who's been Eel's kind of agent that we've gotten. Pretty much almost all our information about the Eel has come through Circlebreaker, kind of how the Eel operates. So he has a meeting with Ralik at the Phoenix Inn, where he tells Ralik that one, the Eel greatly approves of Ralik's and Murillo's kind of mission to restore Cole to his former glory. And if you remember, so the story of Cole is a tragic one. He was once a very, very respected and powerful councilman. Lady Simtal, his then wife, kind of pretty much just screwed him over, ruined his reputation, basically made it seem like he died, essentially, effectively, and then was stripped of his titles and all that. People kind of just forgot about him, but we learned that not everyone was so easy to forget Cole. But anyway, so Circlebreaker and Ralik meet at Phoenix Inn. Circlebreaker tells Ralik that, lets him know, hey, there's a hit out on Cole. Ocelot has been hired to assassinate him. It appears he's been hired by Lady Simtal and Turban Orr. So Ralik then starts plotting his plan to take Ocelot out, just jumping ahead kind of to make this one continuous story from Ralik's perspective. So we see Ralik rub this Odoterral dust. He doesn't realize it's Odoterral dust, but it's described as a magic deadening powder. Obviously, we know that that's Odoterral. He got it from Baruch, who warns him, hey, don't let this touch your skin. It's got these weird properties. It seems to affect everybody a little differently. We don't know kind of how it would react if it gets on your skin, so just don't do it. But Ralik is desperate, and he at this point only has one focus. And he knows with Ocelot's magic, he won't be able to get close enough. He'd be detected unless he kind of covers himself in this Odoterral dust. So he just throws caution to the wind, rubs it all over his skin. So we'll kind of see what impacts that has. And then he goes to the Belfry Tower, where Ocelot is trying to assassinate Cole, which is the tower on Cruel's former temple. This may be relevant, something to keep our eye on, because we know with our conversations with Cruel and Kreppa's dreams that Cruel's an elder god, and kind of how they are worshipped is through essentially blood sacrifice. So they kind of get their powers, is kind of a weird word, but powers through these kind of blood offerings. So after a struggle between Ocelot and Ralik Nam, Ralik Nam does kill Ocelot, but appears to be mortally wounded. We kind of, it fades to black, where Ralik's laying on his back looking up at the night sky, or the top of the tower, I think. And there's blood obviously all over now the Tower of Cruel. So we'll see if that has any relevance moving forward. But remember the Odotarl dust. So Rallic Nam, Murillo does find him, and he's not mortally wounded because the Odotarl dust appears to have healed him entirely. So thankfully Rallic Nam survives, and yeah, that's his kind of little side plot for this part. So yeah, two things to really keep in mind going forward. The Cruel Temple, like blood has now soaked the Cruel Temple, it seems. And then we also get Rallic Nam, who's covered himself in dust. But when Murillo kind of wakens him, Rallic's like, well, I've got all this Odotarl dust all over my face. And Murillo's like, what? No, you don't. And also, you're not wounded anymore. So we'll see if that has any implications moving forward as well. But yeah, that's Rallic's story. He does save Cole from assassination by Ocelot. So yeah, all good things. And then next, so like I said at the beginning, a lot of very important character development happens, or insight into the characters anyways. So we get a conversation between Animander Rake and Baruch, where we see a lot of what motivates Rake. So he's strongly motivated by duty, and it appears that one of his major duties is to, obviously he's the leader of the Tist Andi, so his main duty is kind of to keep the Tist Andi obviously motivated, and he describes this horrible fate that a lot of his Tist Andi have been experiencing, where they essentially, their spirit dies. So they've lived obviously for tens of thousands of years, and they're just not motivated. It's almost like the deepest depression you could imagine. And they're basically just a husk where they have no personality. They just kind of sit there. They're not motivated to do anything. So their body lives on, but their spirit dies, is how he describes it. So his duty is finding causes that are worthy of the Tist Andi's attention to keep his people motivated and engaged and hopefully avoid this horrific fate where a being that's hundreds of thousands of years old, after that long of time, just like the apathy to not do anything, not stay motivated. Obviously, the Tist Andi tale is a tragic one, with them abandoning their warren and the Mother of Darkness and all that, turning their back on the Mother of Darkness. So that's extremely relevant, obviously, to Rake's character. We actually hear Rake describe the Tist Andi of mercenaries of the spirit, which I just thought is this really cool idea. You have this race of just like ancient and extremely like powerful beings that are essentially just mercenaries, but they're mercenaries of the spirit, so they just look for worthy causes to attach themselves to in an effort to just stay motivated. It's like you hear about people in retirement who don't know what to do with themselves, so they find like little hobbies or little work to do around the house or whatever to keep themselves engaged, and that's like the most extreme version of that we see in the Tist Andi. So I just thought that was really cool, and it gives insight into Rake's character. Kind of duty obviously is a huge one, and we see his character. He also describes, Baruch kind of questions him, says like, well, how do we know you're not going to betray us or whatever, and he speaks on treachery, and why basically that's treachery is kind of a horrible idea. So let me read that because I thought it was also insightful, and just kind of Rake imparts his wisdom of being a leader for so long, so many years. He's got some good stuff to say, so let me find that. It's a great quote here. So this was Rake talking about treachery after Baruch kind of questions his intentions, and it goes, Rake was silent for a time, studying his hands clasped on his lap. Baruch, he said softly, any commander of long-standing knows treachery breeds its own. Once committed, whether against an enemy or an ally, it becomes a legitimate choice for everyone in your command, from the lowest private seeking promotion to your personal aides, bodyguards, and officers. My people know of our alliance with you, Alchemist. If I were to betray you, I would not long remain the Lord of Moonspawn, and rightly so. So, and it's true. It's like if you're going to kind of claim power by backstabbing someone, you're going to constantly be looking over your shoulder. So Rake wisely, has learned that over the years, and I don't think that's the only reason he doesn't betray his agreements with people, but it's a very practical reason that maybe a human who only lives, 60, 70, 80 years would have a better time understanding. And he kind of reassures Baruch, like, hey, that's not how we operate, and here are the reasons why that's also a horrible way to operate. So yeah, that's Rake. Like I said, we get very, very cool insight into his character. So just moving on now, we also get, and like I said, this is a very character development part, short but sweet. So we get this great conversation with the bridge burners. We kind of see behind the curtain a bit. And it's Whiskey Jack and the bridge burners talking about how Sari, was actually possessed by the god of assassins, obviously, the rope, and that's why she was like so evil and why people were horrified of her. And this actually almost discomforts Whiskey Jack, and he gets called out for it because in his mind, and they call him out, he was almost hoping that like if humanity is capable of evil like that, it makes him feel better. Obviously, he's been a soldier pretty much his whole life, and he's had to deal with the horrors of what goes with that. He's killed people and all this. So for him, if humanity's capable of evil, kind of rationalizes it like, okay, maybe it's the causes I'm fighting for are worth it, or the people on the other side that I'm killing. It makes him be able to live with himself, and the bridge burners kind of call him out on that. And Fiddler, who is typically a very comedic, character, not very serious very often. So when he is like that, obviously it's important. Gets very serious and explains to Whiskey Jack that this kind of thinking, not letting anybody in, not sharing any emotional attachments with people he's literally fought and seen died beside, why that's problematic. So I also want to read that because, just like I said, certain parts in this section are just so important for like character development. So we see Fiddler talking to Whiskey Jack on how his thinking is problematic here. And I also want to read it because we know one of our major themes throughout the Malazan Book of the Fallen is kind of this, is compassion, and especially from the Marines' perspective. Marines are such a great character archetype in the Book of the Fallen. They just represent like so much like the compassion of a soldier, why they do what they do, how they're more than just like pawns on a chess table to be moved around and conquer lands, like the realities of on a individual basis, what they have to face on a day-to-day basis. It's just a very cool character archetype. If you have read the entire series and The God Is Not Willing, you see a lot of this, and I talk about it in my video. In the God Is Not Willing recap, you see a lot of that in the God Is Not Willing, kind of what it means to be a Malazan Marine and kind of the values they stand for. So that's all good backdrop to pay attention to, but here is the conversation between Whiskey Jack and the bridge burners. And like I said, so let's find it here. So here we go. Fiddler talking to Whiskey Jack. Fiddler straightened in his chair and cleared his throat. Hedge poked him in the ribs as he was about to begin. After a menacing scowl, he tried again. And I think this is Hedge kind of nudging him, Fiddler, to be like, hey, don't make this a one big giant joke. Like, let's get serious here for a little bit. So Hedge is kind of giving him the courage and the nudge he needs to speak his mind, and drop the comedic facade a bit. So Fiddler says, it's like this, Sergeant. We've seen a lot of our friends die, right? And maybe we didn't have to give the orders, so maybe you think it's easier for us, but I don't think so. You see, to us, those people were living, breathing, they were friends. When they die, it hurts, but you go around telling yourself that the only way to keep from going mad is to take all that away from them, so you don't have to think about it, so you don't have to feel anything when they die. But damn, when you take away everybody else's humanity, you take away your own. and that'll drive you mad as sure as anything. It's that hurt we feel that makes us keep going, Sergeant. And maybe we're not getting anywhere, but at least we're not running from anything. And then Whiskey Jack, later reflecting on this, he says, he thinks, all that time pushing them away, pushing everyone away, and the stubborn bastards just kept coming back. He was finally, and after all these years, among friends. So we see a lot of insight into both Fiddler and Whiskey Jack here. Whiskey Jack has kind of been isolating himself to deal with the emotional trauma of seeing so many of his friends die, and people he has fought side by side with, and also the realities of being, a leader in war where he's had to make the orders that have led to, his friends dying. But Fiddler's like, hey, when you take away our humanity, we're the ones that are, we may not be giving the orders, but we're the ones dying, and we're also the ones who are also seeing our friends die. So you take away our humanity when you take away your own. I just think this gives really good insight into Whiskey Jack's character, and Fiddler for that matter. Fiddler actually not just cracking jokes the whole time. So yeah, very, very cool. Very good insight into both Whiskey Jack and Fiddler, and really the dynamic of the Bridge Burners as a whole. So, all right, moving on now. Let's just check my notes here. Okay, so obviously we have Lorne and Toole who are on this terrible idea of waking the Jagged Tyrant to kind of weaken Animander Rake in the hopes that Lysine can swoop in when Animander Rake is weakened to either kill Animander Rake and eliminate one of their major enemies, or to swoop in and at least conquer Darudistan. So we have Toole and Lorne. They do wake up the Jagged Tyrant. Lorne takes from the crypt this, what is it? Oh, the Finist, which has most of the Jagged Tyrant's power. So she escapes with that to kind of separate it, to give them time before the Jagged is fully capable. So she takes that. So we'll see where that goes in the next part. Just a terrible idea to wake this horrible, extremely powerful, almost like world-conquering being. That's like the power level we're dealing with. They're like, yeah, we'll just wake them up and hope Animander Rake can swoop in. So we'll see. That's definitely the climax we're kind of been building through throughout the whole book so far. So I definitely expect to see more in the final part of Guardians of the Moon on that. And let's see, is there anything else I want to go over? I'm just checking my notes here real quick. We do get, this is relevant because it's likely going to matter later on, but we've seen a few foreshadowing. I don't know if that's too strong of a word, but we've seen some references to this power that's growing in the south, it would appear, called the Panian Seer. Dujek, in this case, we see Dujek readying themselves to take on a new player, which is the Panian Seer. So in the background of everything we have going on, Erickson also appears to be setting up maybe a storyline for a future book. We'll see. But yeah, the Panian Seer, who's very much this mysterious being so far. We don't really know a lot about him, really anything at all. But it appears to have the Malazans and everyone kind of scared on the continent. So we'll see where that goes. Also, obviously, throughout this whole book, we've had a lot of this dynamic between the Jagged and the Talani Mas. Obviously, I talked about it in previous videos, but I think it's important to keep bringing up because, one, it is a major theme of the book, but we have the Jagged Tyrants who essentially were just kind of doing their own thing. They're not a very, they don't build these great civilizations. They tend to just live by themselves, do their own thing. They have a few bad apples who are really bad, the Jagged Tyrants, but then the Talani Mas fear either the Jagged Tyrant so much or fear what the Jaggeds are capable of. I think it's just a classic of, one, fearing what you don't fully understand, and two, fearing what's more powerful than you. They're obviously very aware of what the Jaggeds are capable of. So we get more insight into that. And it's Lorne and Toole talking, and Lorne kind of comes to the realization, and she says, the Jagged weren't really that warlike, were they? And Toole kind of agrees. And Lorne realizes that the Imas were actually the ones to provoke the Jagat tyrant to be the way they are. So essentially, out of the Tlani Imas's fear of the Jagat, they've kind of pushed the Jagat in a direction to where these Jagat tyrants can rise up. Obviously, I think there's a lot of parallels to that and kind of what we've seen in human history, and just the kind of, this is another point of the Imas kind of represent some of the downfalls in humanity. Obviously, we're very warlike, and we can be at times. So yeah, that's just more insight into this dynamic between the Jagats and the Imas, kind of why the motivations of the Imas towards the Jagat and all that. So that's good. But yeah, I think that about does it. And if I'm not mistaken, the next video will be the final installment. We only have one part left. It is longer than this one. But yeah, I should have that in about a week or so. If you guys are enjoying the videos, please let me know down below. I always love to hear your thoughts. And if you've made it this far, I haven't done this in a while, so let me know down below what you guys are reading, and if you are doing the read-along, let me know where you're at in the series. If you're, maybe you're on book 8, book 9, maybe you're done with it and you're just kind of going through to relive it. So yeah, let me know down below, but like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.